We got Jeff Pelletier
coming up right now. What's going on, everybody? This is Derek, and with me today is the only man to use road apples for his chili mac with beef seasoning to give it a little bit of a fruitier taste, Carl Mandrioli. How are we doing, big man?
Welcome to the Backpacking Publishers Podcast. Everybody, with me today is my co-host, Derek. He is like a shepherd who's unwilling to cut off his sheep's wool. Sheer laziness.
Wow. That was painful.
Painful, but true, strangely.
True? Is it? Because I've actually sheared sheep in New Zealand, and I saved a little sheep when he had a hurt leg, Carl. And he had poop all over him, and I still did what was necessary.
Okay. How did you save the life of a sheep? What's the story with that?
All right. True story. We were in New Zealand, and we were on the Lord of the Rings trails. There's like a guidebook, and you can go to the different
in Middle
spots.
Earth. Actual Middle
We're
Earth.
actually in Middle Earth.
Okay.
So we were at the location. If I do remember this, we were at the location of who's the evil wizard? The Saruman.
There's a couple of them. Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. So we're
Voldemort,
at this location. It's on somebody's sheep farm, and there's rocks, and you can match the mountains with the book from the movie. Blah blah blah. And we see this little baby sheep in this little ditch with dirt and poop all over him, and he couldn't get up because he hurt his leg.
Oh my god!
So I lifted up this baby sheep, Carl. I lifted him up, and
above your head, kind of like Lion King.
No, that would be ridiculous. And we carried him back, and we got him back with his friends and got him going. But yeah, we had to do it. And then we went to another sheep farm, and they taught us how to shear sheep, and it was a little poopy, but we got it done. A lot of dingleberries, whatnot. But it's got to be done.
And I would say that anytime you start a story with true story, it's probably 50% chance it's true. Is that accurate?
I think that's your fake statistics that you just created. So no.
All right. This is not what this episode is about today. We have an episode where we have a special guest, Jeff Pelletier. And he's somebody that I actually watch on YouTube for inspiration, typically during the early parts of the year. He's got some awesome adventures, awesome documentaries. I'm excited to talk to him. But really, I brought him in also not only to kind of share about that, but also for his expertise. And
he's just smarter than you.
Well, he's more experienced, and so as a result, probably a lot smarter than me. Yeah.
Well, that's how low is that bar? But I think he's actually way above whatever bar you have for that. So.
Okay. So, like background about this episode. So, Derek, we're calling this controversial gear decisions for the last great adventure, and this is not Jeff's last great adventure. I think this is going to end up being my last great adventure as it relates to like running or like a run hike type adventure.
This is the FKT you're talking about.
This is the one that ended with a search and rescue call back in 2020. Do you recall that story?
I do recall that story.
All right, well, we're not going to recount that, but we did an episode on that where basically I wasn't able to go because of injuries, and the other two guys, our buddies Jared and Rocky, went. It did not end well. Navigation was the issue, so we're back. We're doing it this year. It's only Rocky and myself, but we have all sorts of safety measures in place, including like an emergency team that's going to be there. Some Patreon folk are joining up. They're going to join us in Yosemite, and we got a 50-mile loop that we're doing. We're trying to do it as fast as possible, and it's going to be fast enough time. We're trying to set a record here.
Set a record, a world record, a state record, a park record.
Well, if you remember, we did interview the guy that set up the website, the Fast Enough Time website, Buzz Burrell. We went through this
Buzz,
before.
We did. It's been a while.
It has been a while. You're right.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions about this? Like,
what's your estimated time you think you're going to make it in? Like 12 hours, 10 hours?
I don't even want to estimate, man, because I'm so like, this is the last great adventure. Like, chance of breaking down on the trail is pretty high, I would say. So,
because I think you heard, and I think this might be in the interview too, but I think you mentioned to me, like, we're hoping to start like at, I don't know, 6 a.m. and finish by like nighttime, which could be like, I don't know, like 7 or 8, right?
That was a long time ago. That was for the first one. That was one we did back in 2019 in Lost Creek Wilderness. Yeah. And that one we did. Yeah. I don't know that we started at 6. I think we started a little earlier than that, but our goal is to finish within, under 24 hours, basically, which if we go at a decent pace and don't have too many breakdowns, that should be achievable. But just to clear it up, it's a 50-mile loop. I think total elevation gain and loss is we're going to gain the same amount, lose the same amount as 10,000 feet. So it's a lot.
How many people are on the list for this trail FKT? Do we have like
0? Like that's why we can set the record.
Oh, well, there you go.
Dude, we are mediocre athletes at best.
There you go.
Yeah. We can't set a record if a record's been set. Are you serious? We're not breaking any records. No.
Nothing like helping yourself have like some sense of worth and achievement by doing something that nobody else has done.
No. This is a good clarification. I think people have done this. I don't know how many, but nobody's made it official. So we've got, if you remember Chris Mead, the filmmaker, he did the Highline movie.
Yeah.
He's going to come along for the first part of it and do some filming. We're going to try to make a video out of this.
Nice.
And then like he randomly messaged me. He's like, I think this has been done before. And he messaged me an Instagram post from a famous person who tends to live in Yosemite a lot of the year, who had done it, but just hadn't recorded it or posted it on the FKT website. So
and didn't happen in my book. Didn't happen.
Yeah. Any guesses who that famous person that lives in Yosemite is?
I don't know. No idea.
Alex Honnold, the guy that did. Yeah, he's the one.
Really? Okay.
And he did it, and I don't know that he did the same exact route because we're starting in a different spot, but similar. He mentioned going up a
so maybe he like climbed El Capitan and went down a back way and still was faster.
Right. Probably, went way around.
Yeah.
One of those things. Yeah.
One of those.
So anyway, I thought like Jeff has done a lot of just crazy adventures. He does a lot of, he does trail running. He also does fast packing. He does a lot of, he just has a lot of knowledge and information. And as I'm asking questions, you're going to find that he clearly knows more than I do. And yeah. And so for me, this is like the final boss of these like long single day trail adventures.
Wow.
Not to say I'm not gonna have any like backpacking ones or, other things, but this is it for running, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a big deal for you.
It's a big deal. So I really was excited to talk to Jeff about this because I thought he would have some good insight. And so we're going to find out.
Did you have your notepad out? Were you taking copious notes?
I did take some notes. Not while I'm talking to him. I went back through the episode and took some notes. I listened to it again. Okay. So, we do before that though. We got a Bible verse, Proverbs 13:4. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied.
Indeed.
So, as it relates to adventure, is your appetite never filled?
No, it is not.
You're more than a sluggard, is what you're saying.
No, I'm always seeking more adventure, I guess. I don't know.
Sluggard's appetite is never filled, and you're like, I'm never filled.
I don't know if maybe I need to, I don't know. I feel like it's never filled. I'm always seeking it. I just look at it differently.
All right. You're always seeking adventure. What are you seeking? Like what kind of, like, aside from like trying to, set records going down the aisles of Costco, like what adventures are you seeking?
How many returns can I do in a year at Costco? How many, all kinds of things. I can't look. I don't think you're ready for some of the things I'm doing.
Would you ever buy something and then go immediately to the return, line just to set that record?
I've done it. It's been done. That's been done. I got out to the car and I was like, you know what? I don't think I need this. I'm gonna go return it. And I did.
Has the return person ever said, is this the third time today, sir?
No, because they, you check out and you leave. It's in a different area. So for all they know, it's been like, a week. They don't know.
No, you could come in on the way in, you're returning something. On the way out, you're returning something. Maybe you kind of have like return withdrawals. So in the middle of your shopping experience, you're like, I'm just going to go return this.
Return withdrawals. I don't know about your Costco. Are the checkout and the return areas in the same area? No, probably not.
They're close.
They're close, but it's not like they're scoping out who's buying and coming right over to the return area. It's a little weird.
I think you're missing what I'm saying. It's okay. I am
missing what you're saying.
I believe
I don't go extra visits to the return area.
I think that we have the same chances of completing our FKTs. If I can complete the Yosemite FKT with Rocky, you can complete the returns FKT. Whatever that means.
I've already done it, but I'll do it again. It's fine. How many returns? How many returns in a 24-hour period can I do? Done.
Enough of this nonsense. We got Jeff Pelletier coming up right now.
Do it.
He has thru-hiked epic trails, fast-packed epic trails, run 100 miles, and he strikes up random conversations with people along the way. Welcome, Jeff Pelletier. How's it going, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, yeah, man, for sure. I'm looking forward to it, too. You're one of my favorites on YouTube. I watch your videos and get a lot of inspiration from all the adventures you have out there. So, yeah, just thanks for putting out good content.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So for people that are maybe you're not familiar with your YouTube channel, like how would you describe like what's the content that you put out typically?
Well, I'm a trail runner first and foremost, but I like to think of my channel as kind of more just outdoor adventure.
Okay.
So that's sort of, it bleeds into what I call fast packing, which is really just kind of, a blend of hiking and camping and running.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of hiking and just kind of adventures in the mountains and increasingly in the desert as well.
Increasingly the desert. Okay.
Increasingly in the desert. Done a
Like
couple
you're
desert
Canadian, so
adventures.
you're like, are you
Yeah.
the Canadian desert, or where are you going?
No, so yeah, that's the other thing as well. So I am Canadian based, and I do have some videos from our backyard here in beautiful British Columbia. But I've been traveling a lot, especially since the pandemic. I've been, I realized that was something that was missing from my life, and so I kind of the last couple of years I've been traveling around the world. And this season coming up, we can probably talk more about that. I've got some big adventures, so.
Okay.
I've done a big stage race in the Namib Desert in Namibia.
Oh my God. Okay. I was thinking like you're just going to go down to Utah, but you're talking like
No, well,
across
and
the
also
world.
places like Moab and things like that as well.
All
Yeah.
right.
So yeah.
Namibia. All right. I wonder how many people out there know where Namibia is. Can they name the continent? And then if they can't name the continent, can they name the part of the continent that Namibia is on?
Well, I'll give them a hint. It's really close to South Africa.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful country. The Namib Desert's incredible. And it was a 7-day stage race through the Namib Desert. And I've got a series of videos from that on my channel.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of, my channel's a little bit different in that way that I'm doing a lot of these adventures and filming it as I do it. So I'm not being filmed. It's almost entirely, POV, but I blend that with drone shots and a bit of stock footage and things as well. And kind of my own sort of style of storytelling.
Good stuff. I enjoy your style of storytelling for sure.
I appreciate
and
that.
So
Thanks.
I'm just thinking like the Namib Desert, like anytime if you type in like Namibia and then like click on like Google Images, it just looks like there's nothing but desert there. So
yeah, no, it's the least populated country in the world, I believe, and it's
right?
the driest desert and the driest country in sub-Saharan Africa, and it's the iconic image is these dried out trees, these fossilized trees in the desert, and it's largely nature reserves and parks. It's an incredible country. It's also they call it Africa for beginners. So if you are looking to dip your toes into traveling on the African continent, it's a good place to start. It's pretty accessible, it's pretty safe, and it's it's affordable. So yeah, so definitely a place to add on your list. Another one, I went to the country of Georgia last year and did a similar race there, and that was another country that I don't think is on a lot of people's radar, and just an incredible place. Yeah,
it's funny because like my mental stereotype of Eastern Europe is that it's I think just from movies, just watching, like anytime like somebody goes to that area in a movie, it's always like gray and just heavily overcast. And the first few videos of that series, I think there's like no sun for like 3 days or something like that, or at least that's what I saw.
Yeah.
So it kind of hit the stereotype, but
yeah, Georgia, where we were during the race, it was definitely. But there's mountains there that are over 5,000 meters high, right along the Russian border. It's an incredibly diverse country, and there's some seriously good hiking and backcountry skiing as well. So there's some really good through hiking there. So that's definitely that's a sleeper country, I think, for sure, when it comes to through hiking. There's a new trail called the Trans-Caucasus Trail that goes all the way through the entire region, basically, and that's definitely one to add to your list if you're looking for something a little bit different.
It doesn't cross the Russian border, does it?
No, it sort of ends in Georgia on the Black Sea, but it starts I believe it goes through Armenia and Azerbaijan and then up through Georgia.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And you can check out, he's got this stuff on his channel. It's good stuff. So, all right. One of the things that I really appreciate about, what you put out there in terms of like your documentaries is that you'll like be in the middle of a race or be in the middle of a run, whatever. And you're like, hey, how's it going? And then you just like kind of roll up next to somebody and just have a conversation. And sometimes the person's like, let me tell you about my life. Sure. Other times they're just like being polite, but you're not shy. So I want to know how this starts, like how this happens. So like, let's pretend that we're, in the middle of a long race and like you're coming up behind me. And probably you're thinking to yourself, like, man, that guy's going like really slow. How's that guy ahead of me? That's kind of weird. But you roll up next to me.
Down with the conversation. That's right.
Right. That's right. Okay, so you roll up next to me, and then you're like, the camera's on. I'm gonna have a conversation with this guy. Like, first of all, like, what are you looking for? Why do you, how do you determine who it is you're going to actually like film a conversation with? And then like, how do you start this conversation?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's mainly just the difference between trail running and a lot of other competitive sports. If you compare it to, say, marathon, like road running or triathlon, even, those are very competitive to the point where people are like head down, focused, headphones on usually.
Right.
Trail running's different. Trail running is, as I'm sure you know, it's people are out there to support each other and be social and to meet people from around the world. Typically for trail running, we're traveling as well to different mountain ranges. And it just tends to attract a different breed of people who I think, again, are there for the love of the mountains, first and foremost, or the deserts, whatever it might be, and, adventure. And then the second piece of that is competition. But there's also an element, I think, of, we're looking after each other out there, especially in the mountains. There's this, everybody has to have each other's back when it comes to safety. So again, it's less competitive for that reason. And that leads to it being more social, I think. Some of the events I do, like UTMB, I just did last year, which is basically the Super Bowl of mountain trail running.
Right.
And that attracts
through
runners.
4 countries in Europe.
Three countries. It starts in France, goes through Italy and Switzerland, 106 miles around the Mont Blanc Massif. It's incredible. It's incredible on the Tour de Mont Blanc route, basically.
Right.
That's something that attracts people from all over the world, and everybody has their name and the flag from their country on their bib. So, I mean, I speak French, of course, English, a little bit of Spanish, enough that I can sort of say hello, but I have an interest in different cultures and countries. So I will strike up a conversation with anybody. And a good place to start is just asking them about where they're from and what city they're from. And so that's, again, something I think that lends itself to conversation. And when you're out there doing these long races, like 24 hours or multi-day, I mean, it helps to pass the time. So people aren't, it's one thing if you're doing a 3 or 4 hour race, but if you're out there for 24 hours, you're looking for excuses to pass the time and strike up a conversation. So people are very receptive to that. So, I mean, I would never just walk up to somebody with a camera or run up behind somebody with a camera. I always talk to them first, and then I go, hey, do you mind if I film a bit? And usually they're fine with that.
You warm them up a little bit.
I warm them up a bit. I'll learn a bit about them. Not everybody's receptive. Some people you say hi to, they barely respond. And okay, they might just be in a bad place.
For sure.
They might be low on energy. They might be suffering. They're not in the mood to talk. Other people, they're right into it and they want to have a conversation. So those are the people I look for, the people who sort of, can match that energy that I have at that moment.
So you start with like, where are you from? Do you have any memory of like a kind of like let's dig in right now. Let's dig into your life kind of question. I'm going to ask you a question that's going to require some thought here. Or do you stay pretty surface level for the most part?
I mean, surface level, you can talk about what other events they've done, maybe what it's like back home, where they are, what events they have back home that might be interesting for you. But where you get into really meeting people, I mean, these multi-day races these stage races, where I've done a couple of these now, I've done 3 of these. These are races where you're running every day for 4, 6, 8 hours. And then you stop at a camp, everybody regroups. And you eat and you sleep, and then you get up the next day and race again. So every day you're progressing along this course, but at night you're all sitting around a campfire. Now this is where you really get to know people, because you're running hard during the day and then you're recovering together and you're battling the elements together. So it's this mix of competition and cooperation.
Right.
And over 7 days you get to know everybody and you make some lifelong friends. So those are the best environments, in my opinion, to really get to know people from all over the world.
Okay.
Every culture you could think of. And again, meet people where now you have couches to sleep on and, name your country. Right. So that's the best environment, because again, there's this ebb and flow between the racing and the recovery. And that's when you get into the real deep conversations. And some of my films, I then take advantage of that downtime to shoot interviews, in-depth interviews, where I sit people down and they talk about their story of, Matt Kavanaugh from the States, his kidney donation story.
I saw that one.
Incredible. That's from my series on Georgia. Incredible story. Rob, who won this race in Namibia, he's 60 years old and came back from battling cancer and then went on to win the race. I mean, things like this. So I love having that time to really hear people's stories. Admittedly, during the race itself, even if it is a 24-hour event, you can only get so deep. So it's those multi-day stage races that are really something special.
I don't know where you get the energy from, because when we go on long backpacking trips and I'm filming it and trying to make, like a documentary out of it, like we get to the end of the day and I'm just like, and I'll still do it, but man, it's an effort for sure.
Oh yeah.
But running is like next level. Like if I've been running the whole day, like that's way more tiring than backpacking. And so, oh man, I don't know how you do it, but it's impressive.
There's a funny thing that happens. I mean, I've been a filmmaker my entire life. This is pretty much my trade, that I've been honing, my craft that I've been honing since I was 12 years old when I got a camcorder. And so for me, it's sort of second nature to get coverage, so to speak.
Okay.
So, I might roll into an aid station. I filmed a race called Tour des Gens. That was my first big 200-mile race in the Italian Alps. And we had rolled into an aid station, just came off a mountain, chased away by this big lightning storm. And we get there and everybody kind of, lays down for a nap. I hadn't slept in like 3 days at this point. And the group of guys I'd kind of been running with, everybody, drops down for maybe 20, 25 minutes. And everybody's slowly waking up and getting ready to head back out into the middle of the night and tackle the next mountain climb. And I remember kind of waking up and going, oh, I got to film this. Because there was a couple guys where I wanted to get some B-roll. And I snapped into that mode without thinking. Jumping around, getting footage.
Yeah.
People are looking at me like, what? Like, are you racing or are you,
what's going on here? Yeah.
What's going on here? And then as soon as I put the camera down, my body remembered like, oh yeah, you're dead tired. Like, so that was just, it allows me to put on this different hat. And I don't have to think about it because it's automatic. I think, I need a wide shot. Oh, I'm going to get a close up of that. I got to make sure I get, so yeah. So for me, it's a healthy distraction actually.
Yeah.
And I think again, I can go into automatic pilot and do a lot of that coverage that for some people would feel like an onerous thing,
Yeah. I got to condition my body to be kind of similar to yours, but I'm more like I don't want to be like regretting after the trip. Oh, I wish I would have had that shot. I remember being so tired. But so I just think about that. Like I should get this. I don't want to do this right now, but I should get this shot because I'm going to be bummed at myself afterwards.
If you don't film it, it didn't happen. I mean, you can try to summarize things in a voiceover, but there are some moments where, I think, I wish I would have filmed that especially there are moments, there are moments that are sometimes in the moment, they feel like a safety issue, like a life or death situation sometimes. And I'm sure, again, you've probably had situations similar where in that moment, all you can think about is getting out of the situation. And it's in hindsight where you think, I could have got a few seconds of footage, maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it's hard. It's hard to know.
I shoot first and ask questions later, to be honest.
Yeah,
which is totally not safe. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's hard to find that balance. But again, it's those moments. Sometimes it's in hindsight where you think, oh, that's going to make a great story, and I wish I had footage of it. So I think it's knowing when to film. Like you said, you can always just not use the footage if it's a sensitive moment. If it's something where somebody truly is maybe hurt, your buddy breaks his leg. Well, he's probably going to wish you had at least a few seconds of footage of that, right? Like one day he's going to look back on that and think, you could have at least filmed me a little bit when the helicopter came.
Look, I overcame that. Like I hobbled out. Yeah.
And you don't have to use it. So yeah, so I'm with you on that. Like I think err on the side of filming a bit, as long as it doesn't worsen the situation. There are moments where you got to set the camera down and you got to focus.
Yeah. So for our upcoming Yosemite FKT loop, I have already told my partner in crime, Rocky, that if I'm like suffering, struggling, I don't know, I'm like cramping up or whatever, I'm in pain. If you can help me, like, please help me. If I'm just like suffering and struggling, but it's not like life or death, turn the camera on. Like we're going to get this. We want this part of the story. So I think we're in tune with that, but impressive stuff for sure. All right. So like you've already name dropped a few of the trails that you've done, and there's some that like I've watched one. You did the the Tahoe Rim Trail. You did like a fast packing journey on that one. So if you had to or like wanted to redo one of the many trails you've done, which of them would you choose? Like which stands out as like this is one worth revisiting?
Years ago, my first fast pack was the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier. And I've been wanting to go back and do that again ever since. It's incredible. It's 95 miles, I believe. We did it over 2 days, 2 big days. Slept about 3 hours. And it was mostly to test out the camping gear. Honestly, we should have just run through the night. We would have had less kit with us, but we wanted to sort of test out, our fast packing setup. 2 huge days though. Yeah. And, but that trail is beautiful. And I think the way to do that trail is 3 days. About 50 kilometers per day, 30 miles or so. And with
if
support,
you're fast packing, not for
sorry,
everybody.
if you're fast packing, to clarify,
Yeah.
that's the way I would go back and do it. The problem with doing it over 2 days like we did is we ran a lot at night and we missed some really beautiful stuff at night.
Right.
So I think the key to this is jumping ahead a little bit here, but I think when you're fast packing or doing anything, I think you want to find a balance between, pace. Like you want to get these things done, especially if you're there for a physical pursuit. Sometimes you want to have big days, push the miles, but you want to enjoy it and you don't want to miss things, which means you don't move during the night. Don't get up too early. Don't, because you miss stuff. You miss glaciers. You miss incredible things. So that's one I need to redo. And again, I would do it over 3 days. It's a great 10-day backpack as well. But if you want to do it as a fast pack, 3 days with support is a beautiful way to do it.
Hard to get that permit, but yeah, it's on my list. Is that one? That's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. 2 days, man. That's crazy. So, all right. So I don't know if you know this, but if I go to YouTube and I type in the phrase fast packing and then I scroll down and look at various videos, there's like a couple guys on there. But if let's say that I'm scrolling through the first 10 videos, 8 of them are yours. Like you're dominating the fast packing on YouTube. Like not just, I don't know if it's the algorithm or I think you're just dominating the whole thing. So I realize that like fast packing is not for everybody, and really for backpacking is not for most people, but I think there's a lot that we can learn from you in regards to this. So if we're looking to just like really go ultralight, lighten our load, go a little bit faster, a little bit farther, go a little bit harder on our trip, can you give us like 3 of your best tips for basically going light and fast?
Sure. Well, the first thing is everything needs to serve a dual purpose. Okay. That's something that's sort of a principle that has served me well. So an example is I don't wear long sleeve t-shirts or long sleeve shirts. I wear t-shirts with arm sleeves.
Arm sleeves.
Arm sleeves are awesome. They can serve as arm coolers and sun protection in the summer and arm warmers in the winter. That way you can roll them down when you get too warm. You can put them on for warmth. So you're getting 2 shirts in one basically, as opposed to carrying a long sleeve and a t-shirt. So that's just a simple example. You shouldn't carry anything you couldn't run or hike in. So, I might carry tights and a puffy jacket, like a really compressible puffy for it when I get to camp, but they need to be something that I can also use while I'm moving. So in the morning, if I want to get up and get some miles before having breakfast and it's really cold, I can keep my puffy and everything on. I can get some miles under my belt. So I'm not carrying anything that can't be used both to sleep in and to hike in. Everything is serving dual purpose. I might bring a change of clothes. So I have my kit for during the day, my kit for at night, but that kit for at night is my backup running kit. So maybe on the last day, I treat myself to some clean clothes. My night kit is now my running kit. So again, everything double purpose.
Okay. So I want to challenge you a little bit on this then. So
sure.
Because we've talked about this on the podcast in the past about like, that is kind of the gold standard for your gears. Like, does it serve at least 2 different purposes?
Yeah.
But there's things where I'm like, I don't know, like what else can you do with that? So like a toothbrush.
Well, I should say this is mostly when it comes to clothing. That's because clothing can add up very quickly. Right. Especially when you're new at this, we tend to pack our fears, as they say, right? And one of those is the fear of being cold and the fear of being, I guess, smelly. So.
Wait a second. Who has the fear of being smelly?
Some people do. Now, for women, it's a little different. But for guys, it's like, I put on a clean pair of underwear at night and I have 1 pair I'm running in during the day, but that's it. Like I'm alternating between these 2 pairs of underwear for 5 days. That's, you know what I mean? And if I'm racing, I don't even do that. When I'm racing, it's like 1 pair of boxers for the whole week.
Hack your fears. Definitely fear of being cold is one. I have not heard of the fear of being smelly. So maybe I think that needs to be a bigger fear, to be honest, especially with the guys I go with. So you're not okay. So if I'm breaking down some of like the small items in your pack, like the toothbrush, like you don't have a dual purpose for the toothbrush.
No, of course not. I should say where possible.
Gotcha.
Everything has dual purpose. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then so like my co-host Derek, like he's notorious for bringing pajama pants.
No, so you can't run in that or you can't hike in that. So to me, that seems ridiculous. Wear your waterproof pants as an insulating layer at night to sleep in. That way you have them for on the trail. That's a great example of a place you can save on weight.
Okay. Gotcha. Or try to come up with like waterproof pajama pants. So that way it can serve dual purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So first one is dual purpose. I like it. All right. What's number 2?
Well, the second thing is, having said all that, light, but never stupid light, right? So there are some exceptions. I don't mess around when it comes to headlamps. You know, I as a trail runner, I always advocate. I've done some, safety workshops, and I've worked with search and rescue crews, and done a lot of education around this. And one of the here in BC, we have a lot of call outs in the mountains. We have a lot of tourists come, and the mountains are serious here. And one of the main reasons is lack of light. So people go out, their 2-hour hike ends up taking 4 hours, and the sun goes down, or maybe they go off trail, or whatever happens, they roll an ankle, and now they're trying to use their phone to find their way down the trail. Now their phone dies. They have no way to call for help. And if you only carried a little 80 lumen headlamp, you know, you wouldn't be in that situation. And something like half of those call outs are because of lack of light.
Really?
So to me, it just seems like if you're going to go on the trail, bring a headlamp. It could be the smallest little headlamp, and your phone doesn't count as a light.
Okay.
And now if you're running at night or hiking at night, bring a headlamp plus a spare. So we always have, it's always, you know, N+1. It's always, you're bringing a spare headlamp. I just don't mess around with headlamps. Okay. I will sometimes bring a headlamp and a spare battery instead of a whole separate headlamp. But yeah, headlamps are the one thing, because if you don't have light, you can't move. If I have light, I can move all day and all night. I can keep moving. I don't even have to camp. But without that headlamp, you're screwed. So light, but never stupid light. And that is especially true with headlamps.
Well, stupid light might be a theme for one of my questions, but I'm gonna ask you for some advice here on some ideas I have to light my pack load here in a couple minutes. And it might be stupid light, just like a warning. Just you might have to deal with that issue. But okay, so if the headlamp is so important to you to the point where you actually bring two, do you mind sharing what headlamp you what's your go-to?
I've got a few different ones. I've been really enjoying headlamps by Phoenix lately. Phoenix is a great brand. They used to make tactical headlamps, and they've been moving into the trail running and lightweight hiking market. For racing, for like 100-mile races, I use one called the Phoenix HM65RT. It's designed for trail running. It's super high powered. Up to 1500 lumens, but you can sustain 400 lumens for up to 12 hours, which is perfect for trail running on technical terrain. And it's just bomb proof, this thing. Not the lightest weight, but it's bomber. So if you're in the middle of nowhere in the backcountry and you need a dependable light source, I'll go for a heavy, durable headlamp over a lightweight one any day when it really has to count. And then I'll usually carry a lighter weight, like one of the ultra light headlamps,
like the Nightcore.
Yeah, like a Nightcore. Exactly. What's the one? The NCL.
Yeah, the new one. I don't know the model.
Yeah, and there's a couple good Petzl lightweight ones. So that's usually as a backup.
Okay.
But so that Phoenix HM65RT is my like bomber. Like I'm in bear country for 4 days, not seeing anybody else, and I need a headlamp that can last. That's the one I carry.
I'm in the market for one for the summer, so I'll check that one out for sure. Yeah. And I'll have that in the show description as well.
Great.
All right. So that's 2. That's a good one as well. Number 3, best lightweight tip.
Well, this isn't really a lightweight tip. It's just kind of a tip, which is test everything before you go. Never go out, especially if you're going to go out on like you're doing the PCT for 3 months. I mean, go do a 3-day or a 1 night, and if you're doing a 3-day, I mean, go do a 1 night first. Like just try to test everything before you go out in the trails. And I see this a lot with people. There's a saying with trail running, which is nothing new on race day.
Right.
And everything's going to be tried and tested, especially when it comes to your feet or your stomach. Those are 2 areas that can really, really go wrong. And it's the same thing when you're doing anything in the backcountry, or if you're doing anything just really committing, like a big through hike, a week, even if it's just 2 or 3 days, test everything. Okay. Whether it's like how you're going to pack your kit, where you're going to stash your poles. I mean, just get all that stuff out of the way. There's nothing worse than hitting the trails with a buddy. And for those first 2 or 3 hours, they're just faffing around, trying to figure out get their straps adjusted. And it's like, come on, man, like you got to show up ready to go here. Like, so yeah, test everything, make sure it fits, make sure it works. That's an easy thing. You have to do training anyway. So during your training, you should be testing all your stuff for that big adventure, that big race, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Coincidentally, today I was out on a training run and putting in some miles and some elevation, and I have a new pack. I've got like a new Ultimate Directions, like the mountain, I don't know, vest or whatever like that. And so it's new, and I'm testing it out. Obviously, I'm training with it, but I'm not like so meticulous. I'm not like examining all the different doodads and straps and pockets, and so it has this little pocket in the bottom that's like great for my key. So I throw my key in there. And I got back to the car today, and apparently that pocket goes all the way through the pack, and there's another opening with a zipper that was open. And so upon first inspection, I was like, my key is gone. Like, I put a key in a pocket and it just like flew out the other side. It like ended up getting stuck in the nylon or whatever. And so
good.
Yeah, but I'd already made my phone call to like my wife, and like some other runner was like listening in the conversation, like ready to go searching for my key on the trail, which is super nice of him. Yeah. But yeah, so as you're speaking, I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably like do a little bit better job, even like inspecting the gear ahead of time as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, kind of funny. All right. So this episode is meant to kind of just get like to, use your wisdom, and you can kind of help me through some of this stuff because you are way more experienced as far as these long backcountry fast packs, runs, all that stuff. I've done some of it, but not to this extent that we're going to be doing this summer in Yosemite. Mm-hmm. So I've got a list of some, I call it controversial gear decisions that I want to run by you. And I want you to not be shy. So if something is like straight up dumb, like you can just tell me like you're a fool and don't do that. But I have ideas because I'm looking, because my body's been like, broken basically for 3 years. I'm looking to shave weight wherever possible so that I have the highest chance of success. All right. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right. First one is, so we're going to Yosemite, and I don't know how experienced you are in the Sierras, but like I find the weather there to be relatively reliable. Like the forecast is generally pretty accurate, and I'm pretty good at reading the clouds and stuff. So if the forecast looks good for the day that we're going to go, I plan to forego the rain jacket and bring some sort of cheapo clear poncho instead. So I still have like a backup, but I figure this will save me about 6 ounces and a whole lot of like space and bulk. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that's not a bad strategy. I mean, at a poncho, the problem with the poncho is it's hard to move with the poncho on. So it's okay if you're in a emergency situation, but if you're moving, you're going to overheat in a poncho. I personally like a hard shell, and I tend to almost always bring a hard shell. There are some exceptions where, like you say, the weather's dependable. Maybe you're in a region where it doesn't rain, at all, maybe, or very rarely. I like a hard shell because it's an insulating layer as well. And so this is the thing, is that you might be able to, instead of bringing the poncho and a light jacket, bring the hard shell and not something else that was going to be like a mid layer, because the hard shell, even when it's not raining, when it gets cold, can be your insulating layer. So I tend to do the opposite of what you're doing, which is always bring a hard shell, but then bring less clothing because I have the hard shell.
And I was bringing like no extra clothing. Like we're going to bring like an extra pair of socks. I was going to have the arm sleeves, I guess.
Sure.
But beyond that, the thought is like, actually the run that I went on today, like I just got rained on like crazy. Yeah. And I didn't have anything. I just had my, I was like wearing a cotton shirt. And so I figure as long as I'm moving and it's summertime, and if it's one of those afternoon showers, like I could probably just take it from the rain and then I'll likely dry out. And so poncho is really just like, it's an emergency. So you're saying,
I could go either way on that. I could go either way, but I would generally lean towards hard shells shouldn't be thought of as just rain jackets. They're also good insulating layers. And now you have the peace of mind that if freak storm does roll in, you have a hard shell and you can keep moving.
Right. And I do view it that way for backpacking. So I guess I'm thinking differently for this trip, but you're right.
Totally. And just for context, what's the length that you're going for again in terms of time on?
So I think it's like 48 to 50 miles is total length for the day, and it's unsupported. We are going to have like a safety crew out there, but it's like we're carrying all of our own stuff. Yeah. And which, like, when you think of yourself as going like, okay, well, I did the Wonderland Trail, and that's like just like a little bit longer than one of the days basically, but we're going to probably not be moving as fast, like as a result of many different factors and just being older. So it's going to be like, we anticipate starting before dawn and ending at nighttime.
Sure.
Dark. Yeah. Okay. Next one. So the Sierras just got pummeled this year. Did you guys get pummeled as well with like the rain, like the Sierras did?
No, not as much. We have a high snowpack this year as well, but it's not like in California.
Okay. Yeah. So it's crazy. And so we're trying to go as late as possible so that most of it, if not all of it's melted at that point, especially in the higher elevations. But I figured like there should be so much water on the trail that I am, just for this trip, I don't normally do this, but I'm considering just dipping in to fast moving streams rather than bring a filter. It's going to save me 3 to 4 ounces and a ton of time.
Okay, that one's easy. That's stupid light. That is just stupid light. A filter is so lightweight. I use the Solomon XA filter cap, which
Okay.
you know, I run with Solomon flasks anyway. And this is very similar to the Katadyn Bee Free. It's not going to filter out viruses, but it does work for protozoa and bacteria. There's simply no reason not to use a filter, a flask or a bottle with the built-in filter. They're so lightweight, and I mean, it's a numbers game. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I've been hiking for years. I've never gotten sick." Well,
right. I've heard that a lot.
I know a lot of people who have too, who have gotten sick. And once you do, you know, it's so it's a numbers game. The more chances you take, you know, and there's so many places. We were just down in Patagonia recently. We were doing the fast pack on the O circuit on Torres del Paine, and I read everywhere people are saying, "Oh, you don't have to filter the water there; it's all coming right straight off the glacier." I can tell you, it's not all coming straight off the glacier. There are plenty of streams that you cross where there's horses and there's people, and yes, some of the streams come off the glacier, but a lot of them run a long way. There's one entire day you spend going through a valley where you're far from glaciers, and so if you had read that and didn't bring a filter, you're literally that entire day you can't drink the water because it's all there's horses everywhere. I just don't see a reason not to always use a built-in filter like the XA filter cap. The water flow is like maybe 75% as good as without it, 75% as good as without it, which is pretty good.
Okay.
And it's just peace of mind. It's just, again, avoid that numbers game. Why play roulette? Just I filter everything, and I've never been sick, and I probably never will be.
All right, fair enough. And just to clarify, so what you're saying, like the scenario you're describing is like, okay, why would you not have a filter? It doesn't weigh that much, and you're just literally drinking through the filter.
Exactly.
And so it's not going to.
It doesn't take any time. It doesn't slow you down.
Yeah. So for me, and you might process things differently, but for me, like I have a hard time like keeping hydrated, and I have issues with cramps. And so for me, the most efficient way to do it is to have electrolyte powder. So what I have to do is I've got a filter, squeeze into something else, mix it up. Versus just like,
so that is an extra step. That is an extra step. You can use something like the XA filter cap. You pull off the top, and you can use it as a squeeze filter to squeeze into the other bottle. So that definitely is a consideration. You can put electrolytes in those filters. It will degrade them quicker. Bacteria
I would
is
do
likely
that.
so that you won't get as much life out of them that way. But you can put electrolytes in them, and it'll pass through. So that's definitely, you know, one issue. But the other thing too is, again, I mean, we picture these beautiful streams coming off glaciers, but a lot of water is silty, and even glacier water is quite salty. And so even if you're not trying to filter out bacteria, sometimes you just want to filter the silt. Okay. And that's where a glacier will do that for you, or rather a filter will do that for you. Right. Why drink all that like sand and stuff that can be in water? and then sometimes you're like searching out the clear water, when if you had a filter, you could just dip it anywhere. Right. So I just don't see why you wouldn't bring one. So a good strategy for you might be to have two flasks, one of them with a filter and one without. And that way you can squeeze one into the other. And if you see some water where you really trust it, then sure, you can dip that bottle. Okay. And just drink it unfiltered. All right.
You heard it from him. All right. I already have one stupid light idea. Okay. Yeah. Next one is, so we did do an FKT like back in 2019 here in Colorado. And we had a fair bit of stuff. And then the one that went wrong in 2020, the guys that went did end up using emergency blankets and crashing out for the night. So emergency blankets, like we're talking like 1 to 2 ounces, not a big deal. I don't want to bring them because we're going to have an emergency crew at probably around mile like 40, 41. So pretty late in the game, but I feel like we will likely get there either in good shape or, you know, before nighttime. So we wouldn't need the emergency blankets necessarily before then. And then we're also passing a high Sierra camp where like in a pinch, probably around mile, I don't know, 30, like we could grab something there if we needed to. Yeah. So I'm going to say skip the emergency blankets. What do you say to that one?
Yes. Again, stupid light. And in fact,
stupid light again.
I'll see your emergency blanket and up you one. I think everybody should carry an emergency bivvy. And what I'm saying is it's a small bivvy. It's only about double the size and weight of an emergency blanket. There's a brand called Soul, SOL, that at least here in Canada, that sells them. And it's basically an emergency blanket you can get inside like a burrito. And I mean, it would be the least comfortable sleep you'd ever have, but it would keep you alive. Okay. I take mine, it comes as like a roll. I fold it, so it's almost the same size as my blanket, and I keep it in my first aid kit. Okay. Again, headlamp and a blanket. I never go on the trails without one. It's so light. Every Solomon running pack comes with one. I mean, you know,
okay. Wait, are you sponsored by Solomon?
I am sponsored by Solomon. I should probably disclose that. Yeah. But I mean, they're so light, they can be used as a skirt, as a cape, if you're cold while on the trail. And again, if you get the bivy version, you can put somebody inside. It's not about your crew. This isn't about sleeping. This is about somebody falls and breaks their leg and goes into shock. You got to get that blanket on them right away. There's no, our emergency team is only 2 hours away. They'll get here eventually. I mean, that's not going to help you at all.
That's a good point.
You might come across a hiker on the trail, and this is part of just being a good trail user is, I like to carry a little bit of extra food when I'm out in the trails, and often it's to give other people. That's nice, to give it to people, whether it's electrolytes or I've given people water. I mean, especially on popular trails where you're likely to see people, and run into people in trouble. So that blanket could save a life. I think that's stupid light for sure.
So
like that 100%. That one, I would say never don't have a blanket with you, especially as a runner. Because you don't have the extra layers that a lot of hikers have.
So is there a compromise there with if two guys are going, having one between the two of us? Is that possible?
I mean, sure. Yeah. That'd actually be something to think about. The only thing with that is, are you sure you're not going to end up splitting up for any reason? Because it happens. Like where one guy says, I'm going to take a leak, I'll catch up. And then there's a little split in the trail, and before you know it, you're on separate paths.
There's always that chance for sure.
There's always that chance. So, I mean, I think again, what are you really trying to save here in terms of weight? Having said that, we'll often bring one first aid kit between two people, because that does sometimes start to feel a little bit like overkill if you have full, first aid for two. But there's certain things I never skimp on, and something like a blanket is so light. I mean, throw it in there. Having two between two people is good anyway, because you might need both. If somebody is really, really in a pinch, you might need both. And if both of you end up going off trail and being out there for the night, you're each going to need your own blanket.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you referenced the first aid kit. So let's talk about that. I don't really have like a stupid light idea in this. I plan to bring a first aid kit, probably pretty minimal. So beyond the Band-Aids and ibuprofen, and you mentioned the emergency bivy, let me just ask, generally, how heavy is your first aid kit?
And my feeling on first aid has evolved a little bit over the years. Years ago, I used to carry a larger one, and now, I mean, I sort of tell people, if you don't know backcountry first aid, don't bother carrying a first aid kit, because a lot of that stuff, you need to know how to use it.
Right.
Having said that, best case is you take some backcountry first aid. Somebody in a group ideally always does have some knowledge and have a kit with them. But usually, first of all, a good place to start is to buy one of those little $20 first aid kits from REI or MEC here in Canada, and then basically customize it. But the bag itself is useful. It comes with some Band-Aids, some blister kit stuff. Take out the stuff you don't know how to use and put in stuff you think you might need more of. Okay. As a runner, I like to focus on things like blister care. So Band-Aids and basically just a blister kit. And because that's the kind of thing that can really mess up your day if you get a blister. So basic blister kit stuff. I'll throw some, I like to carry some fire starter, some lint. I put in a little waterproof match case along with a lighter. I like to be able to start a fire at any point. And that's also where I'll carry often a little knife, and I'll put my blanket or my bivy in there as well. So pretty minimal stuff. Again, mostly focused on blister care for me.
Okay. That actually sounds a lot like my backpacking kit minus the emergency blanket. So interesting. Okay. All right. Last one I got for you is, has to do with shoes. So I've got my trail running shoes, but I typically am using those for backpacking. I've got the Speed Goats, the Hoka Speed Goats. And then I've got road running shoes, which I've been using for trail running. So I figured, okay, I got my trail runs at this point, are maxing out at 10 miles. But for the actual event, doing the math, there's a 7-ounce difference between the pairs of shoes, 7 ounce total. Going road shoes versus trail shoes. And I'm doing a lot on the trail with the road shoes. So I was thinking about just saving that 7 ounces, saving the extra weight of like, every time you pick up your feet, like it adds up over time. So road shoes versus trail shoes to shave some foot weight. What do you think about that?
I think that's the wrong reason to look at road shoes. There are some events that I've done where you're on the road a lot. And I've actually, you'll see people, there's a race called the Chuckanut 50K in Washington State where it's on trail, but it's quite runnable. And a lot of road runners will come out and do it, and they'll do it in road shoes.
Okay.
But that's about as far as you'll see road shoes typically on the trail. It's mostly about the traction. And I have trail running shoes that are probably lighter than your road shoes, like really lightweight S-Lab Salomon shoes. You can get lightweight trail shoes. The lugs themselves aren't that heavy. So you're probably making an unfair comparison. You're comparing apples to oranges here, looking at a heavier trail shoe versus a lighter weight road shoe. You can get a lighter weight trail shoe if you're concerned about weight, because a lot of what the weight is it's midsole cushioning and it's structure of the shoe itself. So it's less about tread. I mean, if you want to go lightweight, great, get a lightweight pair of trail shoes. The problem is now, can your feet handle it? And you need to kind of train with those as well. So I personally wear very lightweight shoes. The ones I typically wear, the Salomon S-Lab soft Pulsar soft grounds, are like 200 grams, which I don't know what that is in ounces, but it's one of the lighter shoes on the market, probably lighter than most road shoes. But most people's feet can't handle that. So I typically push the miles on these kind of things. I'll wear them for 50 to 100 miles where they're maybe designed for 30 miles. So I don't think it's really, I mean, for me, you wear road shoes on the road because it's like having summer tires on your car, and you wear trail shoes on the trail. It's like having winter tires in the winter. And there's a whole range of weights within that.
Okay. Yeah, it's not as much the apples and oranges, I think, because I'm limited with the shoe options that I have. I've had some foot issues over the years, like pretty much every foot issue, really, that's possible.
Yeah.
And so these are the ones that are just able, like I'm able to, like they fit me and they're usable. So like the Salomon shoes, I mean, honestly, I haven't tried on a pair in years. Back in the day, they were like big time adventure racing shoes, like the XA Pros or something. They were known to be like narrow in the foot box. And so
they're still quite narrow. Yeah. Salomon's known to be quite narrow. And it starts with fit. I mean, I certainly would never recommend a brand over any other, as I'm not suggesting people should necessarily run in Salomons. They work really well for me, and they really fit my feet because I have narrow feet. And the S-Lab models in particular are actually closer to a women's shoe. It's a unisex last. It's a unisex shoe. And so they just fit me really well out of the box, but for a lot of people, they don't fit. So first and foremost, it's about the fit. And this is where, trying to go for a lightweight shoe because it's lightweight and over, one shoe over another is definitely the wrong place to start. You got to find something that works for you. And by works, I mean, doesn't give you blisters first and foremost, doesn't hurt your feet. Something that you've trained in and know it's going to work for you. Again, nothing new on race day or, in this case, FKT day. So first and foremost, it's about fit. And then you can look at features, and maybe you're looking for deeper lugs, 2.5 mil versus 4.5, depending on the trail, and different features you might look at, whether you want Gore-Tex shoes maybe or whatever. But I think getting so focused on the weight of the shoe is definitely, that's the wrong thing. That's the last thing you would look at, which I do sometimes again look at. Like I have a range of shoes and I have lighter ones that I use for my faster runs when I want that turnover. But I would actually never look at that. When I fast pack, I do longer days, especially 50 miles like that. I tend to wear heavier shoes that I know are going to last, because there's nothing worse than a shoe falling apart on you, when you're in the backcountry.
Okay. We have had that happen on one of our trips before, actually. Yeah. So interesting. All right. Yeah. I don't know if I did. Yeah. I know I compared them by weight, but like I'm using both of these shoes in training. It's not like I'm shopping. I'm like, this is this weight, so I should buy this. Like these are shoes that just work for me. And so I'm just comparing my trail running shoes versus my road running shoes. And I typically train with the road running shoes on. Even like the trails on today is a very rocky, aggressive trail, but I've just been doing that for years. And so as a result, it ends up, I don't typically take falls. It just ends up tearing up the shoe a little bit more.
Exactly. You won't get as much, life out of the shoe. They're also typically not made. The uppers are, there's the outsole, but there's the upper as well. Right. On road shoes, they're not made for all the, the lateral movements where you're kind of pushing up against the shoe, and you're bound to, your toe is going to push through that. Most trail shoes, like the ones I use anyway, have like a ripstop upper. They're made for branches and rocks and scree, for example.
Right.
If I was to wear road shoes in some of the environments we run in, they wouldn't last a day.
Yeah.
Because of some of that terrain.
Yeah. Sorry. And I haven't run in your area actually. So yeah, you might have very different conditions. So I don't know. That'd be interesting. I would like to at some point because you get some epic trails up there, but interesting. Okay. So basically you said that, I think you said all my ideas, like you started off being nice about it, but all of my ideas are stupid light, basically.
Well, they got progressively worse as you went, for sure. Yeah.
Progressively worse. I did just ask about the first aid kit. I didn't really present an idea. I just was like, I'm gonna have a lightweight one, but I don't know. We haven't.
No, first aid's okay, especially since you guys do have, I think a blister kit. You want to have some blister stuff. That's the kind of thing that can ruin your day. But no, don't skimp. Water filters debatable. Don't skimp on the something as light as a blanket. And I wear trail shoes on the trail. I think. Okay. I forgot the road shoes.
Well, Derek and I will talk this over. We're gonna have a reaction, and so we'll talk about what advice I'm gonna take and which ones what I'm gonna reject. But obviously, you're coming from a place of wisdom, so I really appreciate your thoughts on that. All right, so thanks for humoring me and taking me through this. I'm definitely gonna come away from this and kind of apply, the learning and kind of move forward as we continue to train for this adventure. But as far as your upcoming adventures, like what can we look forward to? What documentaries you have coming out? Trips you've got? What's going on your YouTube channel? What you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, I finally just published a film that from an adventure in December. I was in the Azores Islands, off the coast of Portugal. So I have one more from last year.
What did you call it? Is it the Azores or the?
It looks like it's spelled Azores. Technically, it's pronounced Azores, which in Portuguese you would say Azorish. They say ish for their S's. You and I talked before we rolled about the importance of proper pronunciation when it comes to YouTube. Otherwise, people hammer you in the comments. And so that was something I worked really hard on. It's the Azorish Islands.
Azorish. Okay.
Azorish. Got it. So that's that I just published, but I have one more from last year, the Grand Teton Loop that we ran. It was a 60-kilometer loop around the Grand Teton National Park. That film's going to be coming out soon. And then we were in
60-kilometer loop. So like, I'm trying to think. We just did a trip to Tetons last September. I'm trying to think of where that would be.
Yeah, it's not one trail. It was a series of trails. But when you see it on the map, it's a very logical loop that basically just goes around.
Like through Death Canyon? Like, is that one of the spots?
It was through one of the canyons. Yeah, I can't remember. You do cut back through one of the canyons. That might have been it. Yeah. Incredible. Right. One of the most beautiful trails mile for mile that I've ever run. Views the entire time. Oh yeah. So that one will be dropping soon. We were in Patagonia here in the spring. So I mentioned we fast packed the O circuit. Incredible. I mean, there's a reason it's one of the most popular routes in the world. So we'll have probably a 90-minute documentary from that coming. And then I'll finally be caught up from this season. Well, actually, I have one coming from the Grand Canyon as well. We were just there 2 weeks ago. And then
you're all over the place.
I'm over. Oh yeah. And then I'm leaving in a week here. But I'll probably be over there by the time this is released. I'm going to England for the month of June.
Okay.
I'll be, I'm going to train for and recce the entire month of June, training for what's called the Bob Graham Round. Yeah. And it's, so it's about 60 some odd miles, 106 kilometers. There's 42 peaks, 8,800 meters of elevation.
Man, that's crazy. Okay.
They're not huge mountains, they're fells, but 42 summits, and you have to do it in less than 24 hours. So it's a self-timed challenge. Right. And it's a big deal to do it. Bob Graham was 42 when he did it. He wanted to see if he could run his number, his age in peaks. And then people have been doing it ever since
and you're 42.
Years. I'm turning 42 that weekend. So that'll be the way I celebrate is doing this. And I'll be immersing myself in fell running culture throughout the month and doing some local fell races. That's just what they call trail running in England.
Is that okay? I thought it was like off trail. Like there's like a lot
It is. It's both. I mean, it is a certain style. So it's less about running on the trails, and it's more like they run up a mountain and they run down it and tripping over, rocks and boggy stuff on the way down. But it's that's what I'm there to learn. I'm there to see what it's all about. So I'm not really sure what to expect.
I'll have your YouTube channel in the show description, both on YouTube and on all the audio apps. Please check out Jeff Pelletier's stuff. It is inspirational. I check it out. I told him every January, February, March, just to get excited for the upcoming season. He's just got great documentary filmmaking skills and good storytelling. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. That was a lot of fun.
All right, man. What'd you think about that?
Wow. I guess my first question is, are you okay? Are you okay? This didn't go, I think, as planned for you. I think he clearly disagreed with some of your ideas. I don't know if you're okay, because I know you like to be right a lot. I know he's the end boss, though. This is the guy. So we're gonna get into this, and I just have some notes I jotted down. I was just curious, like, how you're doing now. Are you?
He didn't disagree with some of my ideas. He just disagreed with all of my ideas, like literally every single one.
Well, I think you guys had some semi likeness on the first aid kit area, but we'll talk about that. But that
one wasn't. I just was asking him about what he would include in that. I didn't have as much of an idea around that one.
Okay, so basically he disagreed with everything. Okay.
Well, okay, so I would go next level. I would say that he didn't disagree with everything. He literally called my ideas stupid.
Stupid light.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that. That's how do you feel about that? Are you personally
That's what
attacked?
I want. I want people, you don't want, when you're asking people for their advice or their wisdom, you don't want them to like brush it over. You want them to tell you unfiltered, like what they think of it. Because if they brush it over, then you're not going to get like authentic stuff, or it's not going to seem as big of a deal. And then it might cost you later. You
don't want a yes man. You want somebody who's going to say what it is.
He's not a yes man. Jeff was awesome that way.
And you were like soaking it in. You were, you loved it, but hated it. How'd you feel?
That's a good way of saying it. I like that.
You loved it, but hated it. Okay. All right. It's hard. It's hard to know that your end boss thinks your ideas are terrible, but you still want to hear what he has to say.
Why do you keep on saying end boss? What's that?
That's what you said.
I said at the beginning of the episode that the adventure, not Jeff, the adventure itself is the final boss of these like day-long adventures.
Oh, I thought you were saying like he's the kind of the cream of the crop of like who you're going to listen to on stuff like this. But then maybe I'm mistaken, because
he's one voice and he's a very wise voice. So certainly I'm going to take some of his advice.
Okay. Sure. Here we go. Okay, so I want to know, like, this is the guy for you to get the advice from. This is like you had the notepad out, all this stuff. This is a big deal for you. Are you going to take and listen to some of this advice he gave you, or all of it?
No, not at all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to listen to some of it for sure.
That's Carl Mandrioli at backpackingblisters.com, everybody. If you want, this is what I deal with, people. The know-it-all who knows more than the guy who knows it all. So
you're calling me the know-it-all, and you're making up like these handles at backpackingblisters.com. What is that? Is that a website?
I don't. People
a partial email address, Carl Mandrioli?
People know I'm joking, but the point is, let's get into the shoes. Let's get into the shoes, because you were like, look, I use my road shoes for like the trail because they're lighter weight, and like, what do you think about that? And he's like, no, that's not a good idea at all, actually. Road shoes are for roads and trail shoes are for trails. And he went on this whole thing about it, and I don't think that's the way you look at it, because you clearly aren't doing that. So when he's telling you your approach is just flat out wrong,
right?
What are you gonna do with that?
So if we can break this down for sure. So his advice makes a lot of sense from his perspective. And from like the long-term perspective. I think you definitely want to use trail shoes, especially like on backpacking trips, because for all the reasons he mentioned.
Okay.
I don't think he took into account, this is the last great adventure. So I'm not looking for like longevity out of these shoes. I'm not looking
for
sustainability out of these shoes. I am looking for them to last through the adventure. And so I've been using these shoes to train with on the trail over variable terrain. And they're holding up. Like, they're going to definitely get torn up faster as a result. Okay. But I don't have his like athleticism to be able to do this for years to come. If I did, I would definitely have a different perspective on it. But if I want to shave weight on my feet and go as light and fast as possible, that seems like the easiest one to do. And if I tear up these shoes by the end of the trip, I got to throw them away. I'm willing to do that for this one trip.
Okay. So
do you agree with that perspective?
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. If it's it's kind of like a one and done for you.
Right.
And you're using the shoes, you're breaking them in, and it's gonna, so if you're in my, if he's, what was he saying? He's trying to get how many miles out of some of these shoes? Like 500 or 600 miles out of some of these shoes?
It depends on the brand, but yeah, you can get.
And and with your training plus the 50, 60 total miles you're gonna be walking in those on the day of, I still think that's probably less, right? So you can really go hard.
I like your thought process in this. So I'm training with the shoes, but I'm buying a new pair of them like a month to a month and a half out, so that they're well broken in. And when I say broken in, like, he talked about how your toe's gonna like pop through the top of it, which I have had that happen in shoes before. The ones I'm using I'm using, they're called the Hoka Rincon 3s. Like that has not been a problem.
Huh. Okay. I mean, yeah, all good points. So lighter feet. So you're still sticking with what socks are we going with? Wool? Cotton? No socks.
The synthetic socks. I'm still working on that. I've got like, I think they're called Belega socks. I don't know. We could do full, like the full gear loadout afterwards, but
we could
maybe after the fact. Yeah, nobody's gonna if this is like, if this crashes and burns, nobody's gonna care what I brought them. Be like, whatever he brought's dumb because he didn't succeed.
I'm gonna call Farm to Feet and tell them you hate their socks since you're using Belega socks.
All right, let's do that. Please record that conversation.
Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so let's just touch on the first aid kit, because I like the point he said.
Okay, Derek brought this up before we started recording. You really are excited about the first aid kit.
I'm really excited because he's talking about blister care. And what is the name of this backpacking and blisters? I can empathize because a majority of what happens to your feet is blister issues, right? So he was talking about taking stuff out of it, maybe throwing in. I heard courtesy blanket. I could have been wrong with what I heard, but throwing in like a blanket in there.
Blister care, like blanket.
In addition, primarily blister care with a blanket. I don't know, but if you know, I don't ever see you putting in any courtesy anything anywhere, so I don't think you're going to worry about the blanket. But
I talked about emergency blanket, and then he talked about using the bivy instead if we had to, like, you know, crash out.
Right.
Which so the guys didn't have to do last time.
Yeah, they did. But that was the only kind of area you guys really resonated with, which wasn't even one of your main points. So I feel sorry for you on that one. But the other area,
sort of. So like the emergency blanket thing, that was a separate point that he worked into the first aid kit, but we disagreed on that one as well, where I was trying to go no emergency blanket because we're going to be passing through a high Sierra camp, a ways in, and then we have the emergency crew kind of towards the end, which can have that stuff if there's an emergency. Okay. So I'm just throwing this right back at you. So I haven't come to a conclusion on that yet. Should I bring the emergency bivy like he suggested or not?
Well, I think you have an extremely higher confidence level in your map reading abilities. I don't think you're going to be getting lost. So I don't think you're going to worry about it. So I don't think you would bring it. No.
Okay. But it's not a loss issue this time. This time is just because now we're older and we're more likely to break down. It's more of like we crash and burn kind of an issue.
That's fair. And blood circulation slows down as you get older. And in your case, it's like much more rapid. So he's wearing like a parka on like an 85-degree day. So just what does that tell you?
Okay. Well, let's talk about the parka. So that one of the biggest ways I can shave weight is not bringing a rain jacket if it's not supposed to rain. And he implied that not only would he bring a rain jacket, he would probably have some sort of like mid layer in addition, possibly to arm sleeves. Like 100% the mid layer is not coming. What do you think about the rain jacket?
For the FKT? No way.
Yeah.
You're never bringing that.
The rain jacket or the mid layer?
The mid layer is I'm not even going to talk about that because it's not happening. I don't think you're going to bring it. I think you would probably try. Here's the thing. Like you were talking about, let me just bring like one of these like Disneyland poncho deals or whatever, these lightweight, junky.
Jurassic Park the ride.
Saran wrap, Jurassic Park the ride poncho. But what I mean, if it did rain, what's the point of even having that thing?
Okay. So his thought was like, you're not going to be like running or hiking fast in that thing. And he's correct. Like it's definitely going to slow you down. It's going to be annoying, but really when I'm out on a training run and it's raining on me, I'm not putting that thing on. I'm not putting anything on. I'm just running through it. And if it's one of those afternoon, thunderstorms, like you're just going to get dried out eventually. So I would put it on more in case it we had to come to a stop and we're there for a while and I've got to take a little bit of shelter. But again, I'm only doing that if the forecast looks clear.
Okay. I mean, you're still going to get wet with that thing on anyway, probably though, as you know.
Not as much, but you're right.
All right.
So, okay. But what do you think? Is that a good thing to ditch? Do you disagree, Jeff?
I think you're trying to see if I'm more on your side than his side. I agree with his shoes.
I just want your take on this. I know you're not coming, but
if I was you, I think you guys are just in two different boats. So I can see why you're disagreeing a lot. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, he is long term, big picture.
Think ahead, right?
Think ahead, safety. Like everything he's saying is really well thought out, and I trust what he says and I trust his wisdom. But this is a different type of adventure.
So then, no, I don't think he would. Nor would I probably bring a poncho. Okay. I'm going to just power through because I think you make a good point. Like if I get the poncho out, it's going to be like a small section of time, barring like I just completely misread the weather and it's going to be completely opposite. But you'll probably just dry out and keep going. You might be a little, and you're going to be a little cold, but you're going to keep moving, obviously too. So
if the forecast is clear, it's not going to be one of those soaker days where it's raining the whole day. So
Right.
the hypothermia thing, I'm not as concerned about. And then if we're hitting it more towards the end, we'll have the emergency crew will be there for that. So
is that more of a game time decision then to bring it or not?
Yeah, we'll look at the forecast. I mean, I'll bring the jacket on the trip, and then exactly.
Decide when you get there. That's probably what I do too.
Okay.
Okay. So and then you guys talked about the water filter. What was the whole?
Yeah, the water filter, like that's probably the worst idea, if I'm being honest, out of all of my ideas, because it's saving the least amount of weight with the highest amount of risk.
I mean, he flat out was like, there's no reason not to use that.
Stupid light is what he said.
That's stupid light.
Yeah.
I've heard people, and it reminded me, he's like, I've heard people say, I've been hiking for years and I've never gotten sick, or in your case, like I've never run into the bear issue and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this is Carl. But he brings a good point though. I mean, I kind of side with him on this one. They have so many options that are so light. It's like,
might as well. Yeah.
Just bring it.
It's more of a time issue. And because honestly, the filter cost us over, like, I want to say an hour on our last attempt. And so, I mean, it was, so long that it cost us that I just got really frustrated. We'll figure it out. I'll bring the filter, Jeff. You convince me.
Is the problem here, like, you want to set this record so that nobody ever breaks it?
No.
Is that why?
We'll talk about how that's not going to happen here in trivia.
So then bring the filter.
No, but you want to move as efficiently as possible. So I'll reveal some of the issues that happened when Jared and Rocky went on the same loop. So they got really, like, they had crazy situations where they were, somebody went to the bathroom. That took 40 minutes. I don't know how it took 40 minutes. They're at a lake. They decided to filter. They stopped. I don't know if they took a break or a lunch break or whatever. They were there for half an hour. One of the guys was like, ooh, this is an epic shot. Let's get this on video. Wait, can you do it again? Wait, can you do it a third time? So you start adding those things up and you start adding a ton of time. And you start, resting and sitting down. Your body has to get rewarmed up. You just want to the goal is to keep moving, basically. And so, like, the water filtration on our 2019 Lost Creek Wilderness FKT, towards the end, one of the guys was tired and they're like, we just need one last water break. And they sat down and were there, not for like a super long time, but it just adds up, man.
I think when certain people start feeling, their body's fatigued, like, it's so easy to just be like, well, let's just take a little, 20-minute break. And then that easily, I don't think that's you. I think it's going to be like, all right, get the water and go. I think, because in your mindset, you're in a different spot probably than everybody else you're going with, just to get this done, push through, don't stop for a long time. That's you. And I think that's good that they have something like that, because I think that's going to keep things going. Because if you don't have that person, it's so easy to be like, you know what? Yeah, let's 20 minutes, like, big deal. And then that becomes an hour.
When you have long days on the trail, you have to have a sense of urgency at some point, whether that's waking up early, whether that's not taking extended breaks when they're unplanned. Like, you have to have that. And unfortunately, not everybody has that. And so I know some of you folks that have gone before, where you have that sense of urgency, the other person doesn't. You got to push them along, or it's not going to end well. And so I'll give you an example. On the last FKT, I don't know if I should share the story, but like,
now I want to hear it.
Yeah, Rocky. So, okay, this kind of ties back to, like, this is a trip we've done a couple times with Derek. And the last time we did it was back in 2015. And I brought disc golf discs to chuck off the top of Red Peak Pass.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Chucked them. Yep. They went forever, went and grabbed them, found. We spent at least an hour up there and like doing that. And it was, like going and grabbing them and then rethrowing. It was super fun because these things went forever. All right. So as a surprise, I actually packed some discs that Rocky was willing to bring the last time around.
Oh.
And they were so excited. They checked them off Red Peak Pass, right? They went everywhere. And so as a result, they ended up like searching for them. And I think that cost them an hour right there. Like, easy. No sense of urgency. Like, let's come back for these. Let's, backpack in and grab these, the next time through or whatever. I get that it's like littering. And so they had to leave no trace in mind. So it was actually my fault for having had them packed in the first place, but they're just like, the sense of urgency as a result just wasn't there. And so, yeah. So anyway, that's my thought. All right.
Okay.
That's a big takeaway, or a lot of takeaways from Jeff's interview. But Jeff, man, again, really appreciate you taking the time, and please check out his YouTube channel. He's very popular in the adventure community. and he makes some really good stuff. He's one of those guys that encounters people on trail, as we talked about in the interview. He's super friendly, just like the kind of guy you want to be around. So yeah. All right.
It's great. That's good. Thank you.
Okay. I've got one thing before trivia. Actually, one thing, speaking of the FKT, I reached out to a company called Element. I'm not sure if you can see this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they make, like drink mix is a big part of our story, right? So they make some these drink mix packets. This one right here is mango chili, and then of course lemon habanero. I grabbed the 2 spicy ones out the gate. Nice.
Huh. Okay. Of course.
This one is just watermelon salt. It says on here #stay salty. So I've been using these to train.
You like these though. You like these a lot. You told me you've liked these a lot.
I have, because they do, like, I'm somebody who just tends to cramp up very easily. And I have noticed that, like, I'm cramping up less after my training runs, my training mountain bike rides, training hikes, whatever. And so I'm going to be bringing these on the FKT. And so I really like them. They are salty. Like you can definitely taste the sodium, but it's not salt water. They have like this
flavor
sweetener. Yeah.
Right.
And it's good. Right. Some of them kind of taste similar.
You don't hear like you don't hear or taste like the stevia after. Like I taste the stevia aftertaste.
I do when I have like the Zevia stuff. I don't with these though. So this doesn't bother me because it is pretty darn salty. Like that's the main flavor.
Okay.
But I'll mix it with like a liter, and that's enough, and it helps me down liter. And honestly, that's what, not only the like the electrolytes themselves, but it helps me drink through stuff faster so that I'm rehydrated. We talked about doing that when we take breaks and we're filtering or that drink. What drink mix you use?
I don't really use one. I don't really use one. Right. I don't cramp. I rarely cramp.
Not an issue for Derek. This is an issue for me, and I think for most athletes out there that are going to sweat a lot. So, anyway, so I recommend these. The only thing is they are on the expensive side. You can buy like them packages at a time. And they, of course, like most companies now have some sort of like a subscription model, which I'm not a fan of. Right. So I'm just going to buy them individually package based. I'm going to rank them 4 to 5 stars, 4 to 5 salt cubes, salt buckets, salt tablets.
That's a stretch. Okay.
Yeah. Because of the subscription model. So, and the cost, but I'm going to be, buying them, using them. So
you like them. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. That was good.
Thank you. We got FKT trivia coming up right after this. Our FKT trivia is brought to you by Vaucluse Gear. Want more ventilation on your back when backpacking? Looking to sweat less on the trails this summer? Check out Vaucluse's ultralight ventilation backpack frame, an accessory that installs on your favorite pack and creates a ventilating airflow gap. The Generation 2 is being released right now. Don't sweat the big stuff. Use code BLISTERS for $10 off at vauclusegear.com. All right. Thanks to Vaucluse. We appreciate them. And so FKT fastest known time trivia. You ready for this?
Yeah, hold on just a second. I got to do something real quick. I got to tell my nurse something. Trivia. Yes. Let's do it.
Okay. So right now we are tied with 2 losses apiece. So we'll see how you do. We'll see how you do.
Sure, this will be nice and challenging.
They're all multiple choice. I did all multiple choice this time for you.
Since I know a ton about FKT, this should be really
you did interview the guy in charge of it. Let's be honest.
Okay.
All right. Number 1. How long did it take for our Lost Creek Wilderness Loop FKT, the one I mentioned that we did in 2019, to be defeated?
I thought you said 2020, but we'll go 2019.
2020 was the failed Red Peak Pass trip. 2019 was the successful Lost Creek Wilderness.
This is not multiple choice?
This is multiple choice. I'm just explaining to you the question so that you're not confused.
All right.
So how long did it take to get defeated? A, about a year. B, about 2 years. C, less than a year. Or D, negative 2.5 weeks.
Oh, let's see. How long did it take? Read the question again, please.
How long did it take for our Lost Creek Loop FKT to be defeated?
I'm going to say less than 2 weeks.
That was not one of the options. You went with letter E.
Or negative E, whatever the...
Negative, that means it was defeated before we started.
Exactly. No, I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to say a year, 2 years, a year and a half. I'm going to say a year.
Okay. So A, 1 year?
1 year.
All right. That is incorrect, my friend.
I thought so.
So somebody actually did the FKT 2.5 weeks before we did not post it yet. So we were the first to post it. And once ours posted.
I was right.
Your initial thoughts were right, as usual.
Yeah, as usual. Okay.
Yeah, so but you changed your answer. So
typical.
There you go. Yeah. So that was weird. I looked at it. I was like, wait a second. We were the ones that like created this on the website. We were the ones that like described the loop. And it says that somebody did it before us, that they posted it after us, but they had the dates like plugged into their Strava before us. So
wow.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay. So you tricked me. Thank you. I should have went with my gut.
Well, I was actually expecting you to ask like how that could even be possible, how negative 2.5 weeks could be possible.
No, not when you're creating trivia questions.
You feel free to ask.
You create weird stuff. So then you mock me and my weird stuff. So.
Okay. Number 2, the FKT website was sold last year to a magazine.
FKT
Which one?
Website was
Which magazine? A, Outside Magazine, B, Running Times, C, Mountain Biker, or of course, D, Backpacking Magazine.
What was the first one?
Outside. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think I've seen that magazine.
Now this one you don't know the answer, but you might actually be able to process through this.
I mean, okay. The third one's I don't know about the third one. I want to say that doesn't really. I mean, I guess you could do FKTs on mountain bikes too, but fastest no. Okay, I'll just go. I'm gonna go Running Times.
Okay, Running Times is a really good guess, but it actually is A, Outside.
It was Outside.
Yeah.
God, again.
Outside. Yeah, because there's FKTs for everything, and so it's kind of just general Outside.
Yeah, I should have known that.
And Mountain Biker was, like they wouldn't. There's so many running ones. I don't think.
I just like said that in my own explanation. Like it could be a mountain biking one or it could be a running one. Let's go with Running Time. Like that doesn't make any sense. So way to go, Derek. Nice job.
You lost trivia, but there's still number 3. The rules recently changed for what unsupported means. Okay, and we're trying to do our FKT unsupported.
Right.
What is now no longer allowed under this like the label unsupported?
Okay.
It's no longer allowed. A, hiding supplies on a loop and then accessing them later in the trip. B, emotional support like cheering from family and friends. C, navigational tools like GPS systems. Or D, the falsified classification of energy bars as candy.
Wow. That's no comment on that. I'm going to go with the first one, A. I'm going A.
Hiding supplies?
Yes.
Okay, that one is actually that was never allowed. That's self-supported is what that's considered, as Buzz Burrell pointed out on our interview. That was only like 4 years ago. I don't know what your problem is.
Why didn't I remember that? It's so crazy. Wow.
It's the emotional support, like cheering from family and friends, and so having like an emergency crew out there, or having Chris the filmmaker, by definition of the website, like we can't be unsupported. We have to be supported, even though they're literally not giving us.
I can't be at mile like 25 and being like, go Carl, go. I can't do that.
You can't even do that. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're very particular.
Okay.
I don't know. So by our own definition, we're going unsupported. We're not doing this for a website. We're not doing this to like please anybody out there. We're doing it. We have other purposes for doing this. So.
Question. I have a question. Yeah. What if it's like the opposite of emotional support? Like, what if I'm at mile 20 and I'm like, you guys suck. You never can make it. Let's go. Like, is that legal? I feel like that should be okay. Because I feel like that would fire you guys up. Be like, let's go.
Do you want to have Buzz back on and ask these types of questions?
I'll be like, Buzz, what if I'm just be like, yo, guys, you're going to hear from me for years if you don't make this. Like is that supportive?
Right.
I don't know. Buzz?
I need to ask him. That's a great question.
Let's get his number.
Yeah. What if we get wind of people trying to break our FKT if we actually said it? Can we go out there and try to wreck it for them? Right. What about like tripwires and that kind of thing? Like, is that
tripwires? Wow. That's harsh. That's harsh.
I don't know. We start pelting them with food so the bears go after them. Who knows? So
that'll happen. That'll happen for sure.
That'll happen. Okay. So, all right. You're now losing trivia 3-2. Congratulations.
I think you rigged that because you're going to lose again. And I'll tell you. Yeah, it's fine.
All right. I got a couple tidbits.
Okay, go ahead.
Bible study starting this week. Last call. You want in on the Bible study, please reach out. And if you're listening to this well after the fact, you're going back to these back episodes. It's the middle of the summertime, 2023. Don't be afraid to reach out. It's never too late to join. So Bible study. Derek, are you in this year?
I'm hoping so.
Okay. And we've gone over this before. When Derek says I'm hoping so, that means no.
So far, it has not worked out. No.
Yeah.
Correct.
Not just for Bible study, but anytime I ask you anything, if you're going to do anything at all, anything in the world, if you say I'm hoping so, that the answer is no.
It's becoming like if you ask me, I want to say no. You know what I mean? That's kind of like enjoyable to do.
I can see that.
So
I can see that.
Kind of gets reaction out of you. Like right now.
And I'm so conditioned to people saying no to me that like maybe it's like this like masochism thing.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
We
should get some counseling for that. Any other tidbits, or was that it for you?
We got a couple reviews here.
Oh, reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to read them?
You want to bring one up? We got one on the app. You want to?
By far, my favorite podcast. Carl and Derek are so fun. I love how they share their faith, and the guests are amazing. I didn't think they could top the episode with Shug. Would have loved it if that conversation could have gone deeper. But I understand the time limitations. Then Darwin came on, and that episode was great, and it's so thought-provoking. Y'all keep on doing your thing because it is good.
Thank you, KJ Knits. Thank you.
That was nice.
I don't know if you picked up on the subtlety in that review, but a couple things. First of all, we did go a little deeper with Shug. That we just had the rest of it on the Patreon as like a bonus episode. Oh. And then second thing, so his two favorite interviews, you weren't there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like it's that's interesting.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know if he listened to the whole thing. Maybe he wasn't really. Maybe he was busy working while listening. Yeah. I mean, KJ, maybe it's time to get a Patreon subscription. Get the rest of that in-depth interview with Shug. And B, you know, when I'm involved with the interviews, it's maybe he hasn't listened to any interviews with me.
Can the interviews go deep if you're there? Is that the question?
Can you ask appropriate questions so they do? Will you allow it?
You're the one that's there. Can you ask
we
already know that I can. I've proved it.
Can you though? I mean, you kind of have
According to KJ.
Well, KJ, I don't know, KJ. Patreon's going to call your name a little bit louder now. Okay. I guess we'll find out. KJ, right. Jump into the Patreon.
All right. I'm making fun of Derek, but honestly, like I prefer when Derek's there every single time. Like I never want him not to be there. Just scheduling wise, it's hard, but
he needs me.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right. We got a review on Facebook. Like some person posted randomly on their own Facebook page, and I don't know. I just got notified. Jason B says he recommends everything, and he hasn't done any backpacking, but he camps quite regularly. He's about to jump in. We have a lot of folks that like are jumping in listening to our show, so we appreciate that. And I'm hoping to do like a beginner's trip next year for a Patreon trip. Just if you're that person that wants to jump in, but kind of afraid to, you know, dip your toes in and wants like a little bit of help, wants Derek to hold your hand, maybe that could be for you.
I will hold it.
Yeah. So anyway, Jason and KJ, really appreciate you taking the time. We really value all the reviews out there. We do have a few things left in our random gear box. If you want a random gear prize sent to you, so please reach out. I got one last tidbit. This one, well,
we got the email. This is not a positive review, Carl, and I thought you should hear this. This is from Linda.
All right.
Linda says, I just recently found your podcast and have been enjoying it. I have a small bone to pick with Carl. During the Stephen My Life Outdoors podcast, in it, he totally reamed Darwin for providing examples for his questions, and yet you rudely interrupted Stephen several times during his canoeing story. He didn't even get to finish it. I don't normally write comments, but I feel you screwed up just as badly as Darwin did. Regardless, great podcast. Now, that's got to hurt a little bit, right? I mean, we talk about we interrupt each other, and it's kind of an editing nightmare occasionally, but like to interrupt a guest mid-story. And he can't finish it. Linda's on it. Like, how do you?
Just to clarify, so you didn't interrupt him at all during that same story, right? Right, Derek?
I was clean as a whistle. Linda, thank you for your astute attention during this podcast.
That's so funny.
I feel like we should give her something out of the random gearbox just for calling you out.
I'm happy to.
How do you feel about Linda's comment here? What's your thoughts on this?
I'm sure we interrupted him. This is like pulling the curtain back about how we conduct interviews for sure. And we probably shouldn't have interrupted Stephen because Stephen was actually a really good guest, and I would have him on again. And in fact, I'm going to meet him at the Outdoor Retailer show here coming up in a couple weeks. And so Linda, I will apologize to him for interrupting him. I'll try to record the apology so I would appreciate it. On the show. Interrupting is a part of interviewing though, because if you go back to some of our earlier interviews, maybe like season 1, where you ask a question like, hey, so how's it going today? And they talk for 20 minutes straight and you have 20 minutes for the interview. Do you really want that? I don't think you do. So you have to, like behind the scenes, you have to interrupt to kind of keep the ball rolling. We probably didn't have to do that with Steven because he wasn't that kind of a guy. So our bad or my bad on that one. So I apologize.
You see, Linda, he's always got an excuse. That's what I'm talking about. He's always got.
Well, okay. What did I say that was wrong about that, Derek?
Nothing. Let's finish up the episode and pretty good. I have no tidbits. Do you have any tidbits? I think we're out. I think we're done.
That's all I got on that.
That's all I got. Hallelujah. Guys, if you need some great advice from a smart person, Carl will hear it and then he will not take any of that advice, just like Jeff. We'll see you next time, guys, on the B&B.